Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we all know, the Qur'an is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's final message to all of humanity. Because of that, it's important for every single human being, not only every single Muslim, but every human being must understand the Qur'an. They should read the Qur'an. And they should understand its contents. Not only reading it in Arabic, as many Muslims do, but also understanding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message is. That may be easy for some who understand the Arabic language. They can directly go into the Qur'an, recite it as tilawa, as an act of worship, and then understand its contents. However, I would say maybe a majority of the Muslim Ummah is unaware of the Arabic language. They do not know the Arabic language. So for them, it becomes quite difficult to understand the contents of this message. And many people recite Qur'an as an act of worship, but do not understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in this final message. On top of that, translations can be quite difficult. Sometimes the context is not there. Sometimes there are some aspects that need to be filled in, the blanks, if you will, to fully understand the ayah, the verse in question. So what is required for people is a simple translation for the masses. A simple translation in English that is modern, English that you and I can readily understand, with some aspect which fills in the blanks for us, that talks about the context, that gives us a little bit of commentary, if you will, so that we can fully grasp this message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is there such a book like this? Has there been a work of this caliber? So here I have Qur'an Made Easy, and this work, inshallah, will suffice for that. As we can see here, it is printed by Zamzam Publishers. It is the revised edition. There was an edition before this. The book is called Qur'an Made Easy, and this was put together under the supervision of Mufti Afdal Hussein Ilyas. May Allah protect him. It says here he has passed away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. Now, I'm going to quickly go through the book and share with you the highlights of this book. First of all, let's take a look at what has been done in the book. I'm going to skip the introduction. There's plenty of things that are mentioned here. The subject matter of Quran, the definition of Quran, how the Quran was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the different ajza, different mushafs, different kinds of prints of the Quran. It's just a lot of information in the introduction, which I'm going to completely skip, and I'm going to go into this aspect right here where he talks about the style. So this is the translator's foreword to Quran Made Easy. He says here, in preparing this translation of the Quran, the dilemma was whether to use very ornate and elegant language which could compromise clear understanding for most people, or to use a simple and clear style of language. Because the intention was to make the Quran clear to every person, the second style was chosen, even though it may at times lack the dignified and lofty tone. So from this we can understand that this translation of Quran is not going to be very eloquent, if you will. What it is going to be is a very simplified type of translation for the general person. It was also chosen because thousands of English-speaking people who are not very proficient in the language found the lofty language of other translations difficult to understand. This translation caters for their needs by providing where necessary synonyms between brackets. It is the language of only the divine that can combine exceptional eloquence and ease of understanding. So essentially what they are doing here in this translation is making it very simple for general people to understand. Something that's very unique about this translation is this section here, the integrated explanation. What he does here is, for the reader to fully comprehend the ayah, he fills in the blanks, if you will, and I will show you inshallah how he does that. And he allows you to understand the context, and he also adds in tafsir of the Quran so that you can fully understand within the reading itself. It's not in the footnotes, it's incorporated within the actual translation. Here he mentions which different tafsirs he cited for this explanation. So first and foremost, he includes Jalalain, which was written by Jalaluddin Mahalli and Jalaluddin As-Suyuti. He also incorporates different kinds of tafsir from Kamalain, written by Sheikh Muhammad Naeem Deobandi. And he also quotes Anwarul Bayan, which was authored by Mufti Ashiq Ilahi Madani. And this last tafsir is in English as well, titled Illuminating Discourses on the Noble Quran. And then Mufti Afdal Hussein Ilyas, so the translator of the Qur'an Made Easy is Sheikh Ismail Ibrahim. Mufti Afdal Hussein Ilyas, what he did is he added some more commentary and he looked over the work. He added further explanatory notes within the brackets from Tafsir Uthmani by Allama Shabir Ahmad Uthmani. So as you can see, many different tafsirs were actually cited for the translation. Without further ado, I want to show you how this translation works and why it's so efficient and why it might be a good translation for you. So the way the translation works is for every single surah, he will have a brief summary of the surah, different aspects that should be understood from the surah, and then he goes into the actual surah itself. So here we have Surah al-Fātiḥah, and he has the Arabic ayah and then the corresponding translation. So it will be one ayah at a time followed by the translation. Now you can see here, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, all praise belongs to Allah, the Rabb of the universe. So here he did not translate Rabb, rather he put some commentary in parentheses, the cherisher, the creator, the sustainer of the universe, and whatever it contains. So this is primarily from the Tafsir Jalalain as well as those other tafsirs that he cited. So as you can see, the red is going to be commentary, it's going to be synonyms, it's going to be things that clarify the translation itself. He doesn't go deep into the commentary. He gives you enough so that you can understand the Arabic without having to go to the actual tafsirs yourself. So this is how the whole thing is going to be translated. Then we go to Surah Al-Baqarah, one-page summary of Surah Al-Baqarah, and then he starts Surah Al-Baqarah. As you can see here, a lot of commentary, and it really helps. So let's see, for instance, Surah Al-Baqarah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Alif Lam Mim. Only Allah knows its meaning. So this is a type of commentary, which is not going to be found in other translations unless they put it in the footnotes. He didn't put it in the footnotes, so he makes it easier for the reader. It's incorporated so you don't have to busy yourself looking at the footnotes. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. There is no doubt or error in this book, the Quran, which Muhammad ﷺ recites to you, so it's giving you context. In it is a means of guidance for those with taqwa. So what is taqwa? For those who carry out what they are commanded to do and who abstain from what they have been forbidden. So not everybody's going to understand this concept of taqwa. If you say God conscious or God fearing, it's not going to carry the same weight as if you explain the whole thing out. So it is an incorporated tafsir, if you will, very brief however. So this is how the entire book works. As you can see, some places there's a large amount of commentary. This particular ayah is talking about an example of the munafiqun, the hypocrites. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strikes a parable. And so this is not very easily understood just by the translation. If you just read the translation, you might not be able to put it together. You might not be able to understand the entire metaphor. So here in this entire thing, this red portion, he explains the entire metaphor. So it is a tafsir, but very brief, and it gives you the gist of the ayah of Quran. And you can clearly tell where Quran is and where the extra explanatory tafsir is going to be. So let's come over here. This is a particular ayah, and what he also mentions in the muqaddimah, in the introduction, is that he will only cite sahih ahadith, authentic ahadith, when given an explanation from the hadith. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Thus we have made you such a group that is moderate in nature. Now he mentions here, so that you may be witness on the day of Qiyamah over people, and the messenger, meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will be a witness over you. Now what does that mean? That you are going to be a witness over people and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to be a witness over you. What is the context of this? If you just look at the translation of the ayah, verse 143 of Surah Al-Baqarah, you may be very confused. You won't know the context. So here he actually explains the whole scenario. He says, when the nations of previous prophets will deny that their prophets preached the truth to them, the prophets will call for the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as witnesses for them. When the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam testify that the prophets were truthful, they will be asked how they know this when they were not present during the time of the others. To this, the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had informed them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will then make it clear that his ummah are truthful. So essentially, this is quoted from a sahih, authentic hadith. The ayah is talking about the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are going to be witnesses. And then the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to be a witness for them. So what does that mean? The hadith says, and that's what he puts in the brackets just so you can understand what this ayah is saying, because without this, it will be quite difficult. It means that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the nations of other prophets are going to say that these people did not spread the message of Islam. They're going to try to get away with making this excuse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask those prophets, other prophets of other nations, do you have a witness in your favor? They will call upon the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you and I, and we will say they did convey the message. Now the nation of these prophets will say, how do you know that? How are you aware of the fact that these prophets who existed thousands of years before you delivered the message or not? And we, as the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inshallah, will say, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us this, and he is truthful. That is what it means, that so that you may be witnesses over people. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be asked, is your ummah truthful? And he will say, yes, they are. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask for a witness for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because of his grand nature. So that is what it means, and the messenger, a witness over you. So without this commentary, it would be quite difficult to understand the context. Now he could have put it in the footnotes, but it would have hindered the understanding of the verse. So you are able to just read the verse, as I have done, just read the black, bold print, or you can read it with the commentary, which really helps. This is an excellent translation of Quran. It allows beginners to really understand the context. It allows them to understand the message of the Quran. Now, what it is not is, it's not going to be an eloquent translation. It's not going to be one that feels flowery and beautiful in the English language. So if you're looking for that, you're going to have to look for another translation. What it will do, however, is give you the understanding, inshallah, of the Quran. Now I want to give you another example. That is here in the beginning of Surah Al-Mujadala. Here, as you can see, there's a very large portion in red. This is giving you the entire background of why these initial verses were revealed. So there's some rulings that are given, but you have to know the background to fully understand this surah. So it gives you that entire thing. And of course, like I mentioned before, he quotes only sahih, authentic ahadith. So this is something extremely valuable that you generally will not find in other translations, and if you do, it will be to a lesser degree. It's as if he has fused Tafsir Jalalain and some other aspects into this one translation. Now, what are some gripes that I may have had? One thing is, maybe a little bit more eloquent translation could have been done. That wouldn't have harmed the project, but I do understand. It's extremely simple and plain. Now, another thing I would have liked is, personally, this is the Indo-Pak script. I read, personally, the script written by the calligrapher Uthman Taha. And I would have liked to see that script, the Uthman Taha script, which is the 15-line Quran printed usually in Saudi, here in a small form. Like some translations will have the actual Mus'haf printed here, small, 15 lines. And then you could have had these around it. I do understand that would have made the book extremely large. So, that's not really a issue that I have, or a gripe. So that's all I have to say about this. I think it's excellent for anyone who wants to learn the message of Quran. And after this, one may go to various different translations of Quran and understand the beauty of the language which it was translated into, meaning the beauty of English, which conveys this. But I think this is an excellent foundation for a person who wants to understand the Quran better. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward Mufti Afdal Hussein Ilyas and all of those who took part in this project. And I highly recommend this to anyone who feels like general translations are very difficult for them. I think this is the key for you to finally understand the Quran, and then you can move on to different translations after that. I hope this was of benefit to you. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the love of Quran and allow us to learn about it and apply it in our lives. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.